Welcome to the Coach's Corner Basketball Show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. It's Grant Flora here with Zac Bowen and Coach Jon Everingham, and we are having an exciting season finale of the Coach's Basketball Show for you this morning. Coach, we're going to start off with an overall recap of your career as a basketball coach, and it's going to be an exciting time, and we're going to get to know just kind of how you've come and coached along the way these last several years, because it's been a long time.
It is 20 years. It's really, really hard to believe. You know, I got an opportunity to coach my own kids, and they're 16, 17 years old, and I really got into coaching well before they were even born, and so it's been quite a ride, and looking forward to talking to you guys about that just a little bit.
So, Coach, obviously you've been coaching for a while, but before you started coaching, did you ever play basketball? Like, was there something there that you played basketball, and that's what made you like coaching?
I did. You know, I was actually thinking on the way in. And I will say, kind of before we get started, some of the best guys that have interviewed me in the Coach's Corner, they've gotten me to get a little emotional. So you guys got your work cut out for you. And talking about my career, as a coach, I said last night on the air that, really when I decided to get into coaching basketball, it wasn't as much about basketball. It was more about how can I use this platform to develop relationships with kids, and I thought being an educator, a teacher, was a good platform, but really using, the game of basketball, something that I had grown up kind of having a love and a passion for the game of basketball through, playing elementary and middle school and high school and college. I just thought that the coaches that impacted my life, I just thought I could, potentially do that too, and I don't think I realized how difficult it would be. But it's something that I wanted to give it a shot, and I'm just really fortunate, to have that opportunity to, coach as long as I did, and still obviously we got the sectionals to go, but coaching basketball, I started out, I played high school basketball at Goshen High School, and played for, I guess in my mind, a legendary coach and Coach Mike Sorrell. He won I think 400 games in high school. Wow. and he was a big influence in my life, and so, but I can remember growing up, you guys, I'll probably talk just a little bit over your head, but in terms of maybe some of the past players that I grew up kind of watching and idolizing, but my dad, I think it's important to say thanks to my mom and my dad, and I grew up in just a little different, family setting with step parents, and I just can't really, thank them enough, for providing me opportunities that I had growing up, whether it be the hoop in the driveway. Last night, I had a childhood friend who lived 8 houses down that came to a game. He told me he hasn't been to a high school basketball game in 25 years. And him and his dad came to the game last night. My mom and my dad were there. And, sometimes you just think back in life, and you think about the opportunities that you've had and the people that have loved you, along the way. But, I was just a kid that wanted to be, like Mike the Elevator Essig. He was my childhood hero growing up. And my dad would take me to basketball games at Goshen High School and Concord, watching Sean Kemp. You guys probably recognize that name, but he played at Concord in the late 80s. But just growing up in middle school and having, tape on my in my bedroom of a 3-point line and a lane, and my brother and I, up there acting like we're players that were playing at the high school level, and just kind of dreaming like someday, man, I just want to grow up and play in a varsity basketball game. And I was lucky enough to where I hit a little growth spurt, when I was in high school, and I went from about 6'1" to about 6'4", 6'5", and really kind of dedicated, my life to being a basketball player. And I think I turned out to be, pretty good high school basketball player. Got an opportunity to go play in college and played on 2 conference championship teams in college at Tri-State University, now trying. And you look back and you think about the relationships that you build, with teammates in high school and teammates in college. And then for me, 20 years of coaching, that's a lot of relationships with different coaches and different players. And it really, makes it difficult to think about without getting emotional, And so it kind of started with my mom and my dad, and I love them to death, and the opportunities they gave me, and it kind of, here we are, age 47, I'm shutting her down and going to be a full-time dad and really kind of root on my own kids and their teammates instead of coaching. But I'm kind of looking forward to that stage. But also it's a time of reflection, a time to look back. And last night was a pretty special night, having all those guys in from different teams and celebrating with those guys. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, certainly. You look back at your time as a player and just what you're able to accomplish there through high school, and then going on to play at St. Francis, which if you just know how good the Crossroads League is.
Yeah.
Some of the best players in our area that we've seen and played against are going to that Crossroads League, and so it just shows how good of an accomplishment that is. And then that leads into the coaching career. And so, Coach, we know you've coached at some different places and coached at some different levels. So what were some of those places in these last 20 years that you've been able to and had the opportunity to coach?
Yeah, good question. I went from Tri-State University. I just thought that, I'd step into a role as the CEO of like Microsoft. I was that kid in college. I just thought, my leadership skills. I was a co-captain, at Tri-State University, and I just thought that I had a business degree, and in the back of my mind, I thought education, but I was going to make a lot of money, and so getting into sales in some way, shape, or form, or business. But I quickly realized that there was a different purpose for my life. It was about the things that I thought I was really good at is developing relationships with people and getting along with a wide range of people, and so. It didn't take me long, there was a process and kind of really getting to where I could, get into education and was lucky enough to land a job at Goshen High School and work for Bruce Zimmerman, as a freshman assistant coach. And kind of back in the day, you had to start at the lower end of the totem pole and kind of work your way up. And after a few years, I got a chance to coach a freshman team and man, I just loved it. Some of those guys that I coached on that freshman team, at Goshen are guys that I'm still in contact with now. It's very difficult to believe that they're like 35 years old now, 30, almost getting close to 40. But I contacted those guys, and unfortunately they were unable to make it last night. But kind of texting back and forth with them, and the relationship that I have with them, and it's pretty cool, and so, I thought about, applying for head coaching jobs, and I go to Argus, high school, and it's a 1A school, and there was nothing left in the cabinet in terms of talent, there, and it's a 1A job, and they were really struggling, and I know the athletic director, his nickname was Pooch, but Pooch Snyder, he sat me down and he said, we're going to offer you this job. He's like, but I think you're a good young coach and you really need to think about, coming here. There's not a whole lot here. And I just, my wife and I, we just thought we always kind of dreamed of going on the route of being a basketball coach and education. And we just had twins that were born. And, financially, it's probably one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made, as the man of the house, because we didn't make very much money. And, we go there and I just ran into just the right situation with the type of kids that were at Argus. And I think 4 of the 5 guys that on my very first basketball team were here last night and got a chance to reminisce with them after the game, as we sat around and just kind of talked about, some of the things that we went through, but what a great place that was, and I thought I'd be there for a long time at Argus, and it just didn't pay enough. Honestly, I I got a call. I was mowing the lawn in the backyard, and I got a call from DeKalb, and they offered me about $25,000 to $30,000 pay raise. And I got 3 young kids at the time who are now playing, for Wawasee, but I just couldn't turn that down. So I spent 2 years at Argus and then went 6 years at DeKalb, which was an amazing experience for me and my family. And thought I was done after DeKalb, and Wawasee came calling, and that's kind of how I got here.
Coach, you're talking a little bit about the relationships that you build with all those players, and building relationships with players is one of the biggest things a coach can do. So what can you say about building relationships with them and how that can help the player overall?
See, he's trying to do it. See? He's trying to do it. He's good.
Is there a switch here that says turn the tears on?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, something like that.
See, Zach, I told you, he's trying to do it. He's trying to do it. But, I'll tell you this real quick story. I was driving on one of my good buddies, and I was just driving. We were driving around in the car in Goshen, and he said, "What are you coaching for?" And I was like, "Oh man," I was telling him all these X's and O's, and I said, "I think I could do it." I got answers to everything. 1-3-1 and 3-2 and man-to-man and full court press. Like it's all in my brain. I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be really good at it. And he's like, "Wow." He said, "I thought you'd answer that differently. I thought you'd talk about the kids, the kids that you get to coach." And I think at that moment I started to really think through like the impact that I could have, with young people, in high school, and like the coaches did when I was in school, and so, it couldn't be more true that, the kids that I've been able to work with, and you think about the meetings that you have in a coach's office or at my house, and the trials and tribulations that you go through when you're a young kid, and to have somebody, a mentor or somebody that you can talk to about those things. I just can't tell you, how blessed I've been to be able to have those conversations with kids. And I haven't reached them all. Look, I mean, when you're a coach, you're not going to reach everybody. And I thought maybe I could. And I think the vast majority of the players that have played for me, I've reached, and I have great relationships. But, there are some out there that it wasn't me. I wasn't the guy to reach them, and so, but what I can tell you is I loved them all, and all of my players that ever played for me, whether it be on the freshman team or the JV or the varsity, is I think I'm going to look back on the experiences that I had in coaching and think, without a shadow of a doubt, I loved them all. Did I do all the right things or make all the right decisions and the X's and O's and playing time and all that stuff? But I think that the values that I was raised, in my home, with my high school basketball coach, that I think I'm going to look back and be very proud of the things that I accomplished, as a high school basketball coach.
Yeah, Coach, for sure. I know I'm just thinking about how kind of my journey through sports has been, and I know I was applying for a scholarship not too long ago, and it asked me what I thought about like sportsmanship and sports as a whole and the purpose. And so I had to really think about that. And it's the same thing. It's about those relationships that you build and the lessons that you learn along the way.
Yeah.
And so it's a great thing to just be reminded of and to look at.
Yeah, there's a picture taken last night. I'm telling you that there's a lot, especially from Wawasee, that there's a lot of kids that they're younger, they're off at college. And I got so many text messages from those guys. And Ethan Hardy, for example, I think he's getting deployed. And I'm not sure where he's going or what he's doing. But, man, I'm telling you, man, one of the best kids that I've ever coached, and got a great relationship with him. But I know wherever he's at and wherever he's sitting and fighting for us, he's in the Marines, and just I know he thinks about high school basketball. He thinks about me. He thinks about his family, and those are the types of things that just, it's unexplainable. It's like when you win a huge game, like on a last-second shot, it's like that times 10 or more. You think about those kids, and Cameron Salazar and J.D. Slayball was there last night, Ben Hoffert, and just to name a few, of the Wawasee kids that I've coached that they're getting old enough to almost be my friends. It's no longer player coach, but it's a pretty cool feeling to take a picture last night with the players former coaches and all the text messages that I've received. It's certainly, you look at each individual player or coach that I worked with and the relationships that I built, and you just sit there and you think about the experiences that you went through and the battles that you went through and the friends you made along the way, and it's certainly amazing. We lost our point guard due to a car accident. The first team that I ever coached at Argus, and hit Drew Overmyers, and Drew's older brother was here last night. It's hard not to get emotional about looking at Josh and thinking about his brother and all the things that he went through. And so, look, man, I'm looking forward to being a dad and sitting back and rooting on my own kids. But, at the same time, you look at all those relationships that you built with those people, and they're good people, and they're great men now, and fathers and husbands. And man, I just couldn't be more proud of those guys.
The last thing you want to do, Grant, is let me in the studio. Yeah. But
it's Mr. Van Loo, everybody.
Yeah, so I'm sure we're past our point of time, and I know you need to get on to the next segment. But real quick, Coach, when's the book coming out? Because you have enough stories that you do. Serious, and I'm being serious, actually. Yeah. I mean, you could write a book, and obviously maybe now's not the time, but you could. I mean, I think all of us, especially at our time and our point in our lives where we could write a book, especially us who work with kids. Yeah,
and I know that sounds crazy, writing a book, but I've joked around for years that I could write a book, and that's the good, bad, and the ugly. That's all the things that have happened, because when you're a high school basketball coach in the state of Indiana, there are things that happen, and there's politics that happen, and there's playing time that happens, and here's my philosophy and how it's always kind of played out in my mind. Just love one another. Just love the kids and do what's right. And even sometimes when you do the right thing, the perception of what it actually is different with some people. And so you have to put what I tell my assistant coaches, and I tell myself a lot, you put your blinders on and you just love the people that are in front of you, and everything else, all the drama, all the politics and all the other stuff that tends to take care of itself, even though it's out there. But I'm fortunate enough to have those kids in front of me and assistant coaches and just to look at them and love them. That's it. And if you can do that, if you can accomplish that in education, things tend to work out.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes, well, I'm on chapter 19.
Are you?
I'm on chapter 19. And I know, listen, I just found out.
Simon & Schuster, where are you at? He's ready for a deal.
Already.
I just found out about this chat GPT or all this AI stuff, and he's that guy Gary, that's my chat GPT name. He's going to help me write a book. I'm on chapter 19.
Yeah.
So.
All right, good. Well, Grant, I'll turn it over to you. No, just forewarning you, I am going to sit in here for every segment because I've been working with this guy for quite some time. So,
yeah, for sure.
I'm sad to see him go, but still get to be a colleague with him. So, okay, I'll shut up now. Go.
All right, that's going to conclude our first segment of the Coach's Corner Basketball Show. Coming up, we're going to have more from Coach, and we'll see you on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. Welcome back to the Coach's Corner Basketball Show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. It's Grant Flora with Zac Bowen and Coach Jon Everingham, and we're going to have Mr. Van Loo here intermittently as well. And it's time to discuss these last few weeks with 93.7 FM The Mix.
Yeah. What's it been, Coach? 5 weeks, I think. It was January 20th. And if you recall, Coach, that was the cancer fundraiser day, which we had planned on the live radioathon here on the Mix. And then later that night, you were hosting Plymouth. And we were going to have all of the different fundraising opportunities. Your team and Plymouth wearing the shirts, all the fun fanfare, right? Which, by the way, I think we can now announce that we did raise. We're going to have a final verification this coming week, but at least $5,000 for the Kosciuszko County Cancer Care Fund. So I showed up at 5:45 in the morning on Friday, January 20th. This is probably going to be one of those dates that I'll never forget, like 9/11. And I mean, I'm serious. Showed up at 5:45 in the morning, and 3 other students. We were going to get ready for the radiothon, and I went to a computer of mine here in the studio that takes care of what shows up on your car radio display, because the song it said we were playing by Mariah Carey was not what was being played. And so I went into that computer, and the computer says ransomware detected. So I contacted the head of our IT department here at the school corporation, and needless to say, we started shutting everything down. So fast forward, unfortunately, that did a number on the technology, and so that was the first night we didn't get to broadcast a game. I remember Coach saying, "You can't broadcast a game?" No, we can't. And so we weren't able to do any games for several weeks, home or away, and we so apologized to our underwriters for that. It was obviously beyond our control. We did everything we could just to keep the radio station on the air with a backup system, and we were able to do that. And then last night, the first thing I put on social media with a picture of Mr. Huffman and the 2 students that were running the TV broadcast is, we're back. And only because of the technology department here at Wawasee Community School Corporation, Wade Wireball and his team. I mean, and I know, Coach, I'll let you have the mic here too, but just amazing. In a few short weeks, they had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
From scratch to get us where we are today. You want to piggyback on that?
Really, when I first started hearing about this stuff, the first thing that I talked about the last segment too, we're here for the kids, and we're here to educate kids. And the first thing I thought about was all the amazing opportunities that kids have here, at Wawasee or Pathways. And I just thought, I wonder how this is going to affect, the educational day, kids learning and the educational environment. What about our computers, and what about the internet? And there were a lot of questions. And I think the Wawasee community, in terms of the school community, kind of banded together, and we knew that we were in for quite a challenging time. And Wade Wireball and his team, I remember it was after the game. You're right, it was the day after a game when they started the work, because I took them some of the meals from the upper deck. I took some meals and I just kind of set it there and kind of tiptoed out, because I knew that those guys are going to be working really, really hard and some really long hours to kind of get this back up and running. And the other thing too, I got people asking me about the radio and the TV and broadcasting games, and that wasn't the highest priority in terms of, I'm sure that what they went through, in terms of completely starting over. Obviously we didn't pay the ransom, and we rebuilt everything. That means all the teachers and their computers, the stuff that you got saved that you didn't back up, that's all gone. And there is no turning back. And so I think it's one of those things, when bad things happen, you find a silver lining, and you figure out, who you are in some of your darkest moments. And it's amazing that, our teachers and students, and that's Wawasee High School, that's the Pathway students, that's the teachers, that we figured out a way to educate kids, and so it's something to be proud of, I think, when you look back on it.
Oh, we are, and I think you can parallel to coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, that's called adversity, right? And one of the things that I always try to teach in my classroom is overcoming adversity. I guarantee you, on the basketball court, you've been doing that for 20 years, right? How do you overcome adversity? And we did. Yeah. So,
well, we're back up and running now, and I think it's something that we will talk about for quite some time. The kids that were here and the teachers, you just don't. If you're not here, you don't quite understand the full story and maybe the severity of what we just went through. But in the day and age where you have to have technology, you have to have the internet, to do what we do. It's a must, and so we didn't have that for a while, and I just didn't hear anybody complaining, I'm sure there probably were some out there, but we figured it out, and so it was pretty cool. But you guys also figured it out, right?
Yeah.
You guys were off and running and doing your thing somewhere else. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were able to get the opportunity to go and broadcast some of the West Noble basketball games, something that I've done in the couple years past, and just a huge thank you to Mr. Skimmerhorn for letting us go on and do that. But it was really fun to watch West Noble and keep calling some games, and we had the opportunity to call some really good basketball games over there at West Noble.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, can you give us some highlights of what you guys went through? Because I know they've had a lot of really good games, and I knew you guys were over there, calling their games. And,
Wait a
and
second.
so
Is this a scouting report before the sectional?
Listen, I know who they are. Trust me. Okay? I know exactly who they are, and you know what? I hope we play them. And Coach Marsh, he hopes we play them as well. That means Northwood's out of the mix. But you guys want to talk about some of the games that you called, some of the highlights of the West Noble. West Noble's in our co-op. You're a West Noble student.
Yes.
And certainly we share students, and this program is about our co-op, and it's about Fairfield, Wawasee, Goshen, and certainly West Noble. And so what a great opportunity for you guys to go to another school in our co-op, which is Pathways, and call some games over there. What were some of the highlights?
I'd like to open up with the Northwood game that we called.
Oh, you did.
That was an amazing game to call. Obviously, West Noble didn't get the win, but just the atmosphere there and just the game overall. I mean, it was back and forth, and the ending, I mean, it was just fit for a game. I mean, like me and Grant, I think we said it like 30 times that game. It was just Indiana basketball at its finest. And
The gym was packed.
Oh, yeah, it was packed. I
Loud.
mean, both crowds showed up.
At West Noble.
Right. It was 3A number 4 versus 3A number 1.
Yeah.
You had 2 solid student sections, one from each school. The gym was packed. Fans, knew it was a big game. And then the play was a really high level.
Yeah.
You had, Braden Barth for West Noble matched up with Tyler Rosh and the big guys from Northwood. You had Austin Kripe and Cade Brenner in the backcourt. Just some really good players that are going to go on to play at the next level. And they showed out really well. West Noble was leading at the half, but it was close the whole way. Northwood had a good third quarter and ended up getting the win. But it was a really fun game to just be at, and then especially to call.
Yeah. I was over there and said hi to you guys when Adams Central came into town. The AC, actually a good coaching buddy of mine, Aaron McClure, coaches for them. But they had won 15 in a row, and they come into town, and West Noble beat them over there.
Yeah, that was a great game as well. It was senior night for West Noble, playing an Adams Central team that was on a 15-game winning streak. They dropped a few games early in the season, but other than that, they were doing real well, and they're going to be a contender in that 2A sectional coming up with Blackhawk as well.
And, Coach, I just want to say, we seen you walk out, and you walked out at the wrong time.
I know.
It came down.
Kripe missed the free throw.
He missed the free throw, and they go
1-1.
down. And when they shot the shot, I kid you not, I looked over at Grant. We thought it was going in.
Yeah.
It was straight in the hoop and just bounced out. I mean, it was an amazing finish.
We were watching out on the monitors by the exit door because we were there scouting, and as soon as Kripe got fouled, I said, he'll make a free throw and the game's going to be over. But as it turns out, he missed a free throw, and he had a bit of a rough night. I think he was 1 for 7 from 3. If a rough night is considered, I don't know how many points he had. He probably had 23,
Yeah,
but
he still scored.
he could have had
solid.
40. That I think he was 1 for 7. But look, I think the bottom line is I'm just really happy for you guys because you got a chance to figure it out. Like we talked about the ransomware and not having internet. But here's the thing: successful people find a way to get the job done, and that's exactly what you guys did. That's exactly what Radio TV did. He said, "Hey, okay, what's Plan B?" And Plan B was a pretty good option, to go over there and cover the West Noble games. And Coach Skimmerhorn, I call him Coach Skimmerhorn because he was my coach in college. But Tom Skimmerhorn is a great person over there at West Noble, and getting you guys set up and hooked up and allowing you guys to call their games. And you'll call at least one more West Noble game, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully 2. And so you guys will get a chance to continue to cover them.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to next week. The 4 sectional games that we're going to call, beginning with Tuesday night, Northwood versus Wawasee, and then the semifinals on Friday as well. But it's certainly going to be some fun times ahead this next week. All right, well, coming up, we're going to have more Coach's Corner basketball show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. Welcome back to the Coach's Corner basketball show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. It's Grant, Flora with Zac Bowen and Coach Jon Everingham, and it's time to discuss these last several games that Wawassee's played. You know, you're on a pretty good streak. You're winning 3 of your last 4 of the last 6. And so let's kind of take a look at some of these games that we haven't been able to cover on air.
Yeah, we've been kind of talking to, I've been talking to our guys about, playing our best basketball at the end of the year, and I don't think there's any question we're doing that, and so it kind of started over at Lakeland, and we had come off, a couple tough losses. We did beat Plymouth. We beat them pretty handily, and we go over to Lakeland against a good Lakeland team. I think as of right now, I think they've won 15 or 16 games, and we held them to 15 points in the first half and ended up beating them, I think, maybe 10 points or so. Zach, do you know what the score was of that game?
It was 53-50.
We beat them by 3 points?
Yeah. It doesn't, yeah.
See, my recollection is a little different than that. But I will tell you, in all honesty, I think we were ahead maybe 12 or 15, and they came back late. They tossed in a 3 maybe late to kind of cut it to 3. But it kind of was a feeling of, that we had that game in control most of the game. And so they're a good basketball team, and West Noble is going to find that out, come Friday night in the sectional. But, that kind of started us on a path that we really started believing that we were in pretty good shape. And like you said, we won 3 of our last 4. We played a real, complete game against Elkhart Christian. Elkhart Christian had beaten Bethany, who had beaten us, so it was something to be concerned about. But what was the score of the Elkhart Christian game?
58-30.
There we go. So that was a game we shot really well. We moved the basketball really well, and a lot of different people, played in the game and scored in the game, and it was probably one of our more complete games in terms of, having energy on defense and knocking down shots, and so those 2 wins were big wins for us. We did drop one in the middle there. Who was that? Goshen. Yeah, and over at Goshen, man, that was anytime you play in the NLC, it's always tough, and it was a hard, tough fought game over there at Goshen, and we were right there and in position to maybe sneak out a victory over there, and I thought we played pretty well. But they just had a couple guys, that had really good games, in Quinn Bechtel and their big guy underneath that causes problems. But still, you just thought we were on the right path, and we've won our last 2 games, correct?
Yeah.
And so we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, you look at some of those wins, their most recent over East Noble last night, and then the one before that against Westview. Westview, a team that's competed with some top-notch teams like West Noble and had some close games against them. East Noble, despite their record, has played a lot of close games, a lot of overtime games, and competed with good teams as well. And you've been able to beat them, 7 points against Westview and 16 against East Noble. And so, like you said, you really are starting to hit your stride heading into sectionals.
Yeah, and that's what you want to have happen. And it takes a lot. We talked, in the first segment of just about different things that happen during a basketball season. And, we had, Miles went through, his ankle injury over at Mishawaka and still hasn't fully recovered from that ankle injury. We're going to have to get it taken a look at, after the season's over. But, we went through a flu or sickness, stage where we were just missing some really key guys. You saw last night Nolan Holsworth, he's been coming along really well in terms of getting more minutes, as he's been back. But we thought we lost him for the season, and he's kind of snuck back into the lineup there. And so we've had some things like all teams. Every team can talk about injury and sickness, and it just seemed like the timing for us was just not great in terms of actually pulling out some of these wins. We were without this guy, or this guy was hurt. And, when you go through a season like what we've gone through, and you talk about adversity, and you talk about overcoming, and you talk about our locker room staying together and the guys believing in each other, the guys believing in the coach, we'll take a look back at this season, and we're going to think really good thoughts in terms of, how hard it was to get to where we got, and we got our work cut out for us with Northwood and Sectional, but I'm just really proud of our team and our coaches for kind of sticking with it, because there was a time in the season when things were a little low, and we could have had guys that quit on each other and quit on their coaches, but we just refused to do that. And so I have reason to be very proud of my team and the guys in the locker room and the way they kind of overcame adversity and stuck with it. And we are where we are. We're playing pretty good basketball right now.
And, Coach, just one thing I'd like to point out, too, building back in Nolan Holsworth and Darius Lewis at that, they both were kind of out at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
And then you build them right back in. And last night I was seeing them play, and it seemed like they just fit right back in and were connecting with the whole team, and that just really speaks on your part.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I tell you what's not easy. Darius had a broken leg, and Nolan had a pretty devastating. I remember the Warsaw game, having a conversation with him on the side. I said, hey man, you're not going to believe this. I said, but you're a varsity basketball player. You're like, we're ready to go, and I thought he had a strained groin. And I just thought it was kind of one of these minor injuries that would take a day or two. But what I was telling him was, like, as soon as you're healthy, we're going to put you in there. And so you go from Warsaw, which is like our 5th or 6th game of the year, all the way to our 16, 17, 18th game of the year. He misses 13, 14, 15 games. We're without somebody who would have helped us along the way. And so that was a big hit, that we didn't have him available throughout the season, but I'm happy for him because he was so positive through that process. When he found out that his season might be over, he was a great teammate on the sideline, and I'm just really happy for him. And Darius is another guy that, he had a broken leg, in the summertime, and came back just a little out of shape and not able to run, like he's used to running, and having him work himself back into the lineup, is really cool. The other thing, too, is when those guys come back and they're playing more minutes, that means somebody else is not playing as many minutes. And so just really proud of everybody from 1 to 12 that they have kind of bought into the idea that, hey, whatever it takes, whatever I can do, what's my job, and let me see if I can go out and do it to the best of my ability. And sometimes there's a lot more to it than what people know.
Yeah, Coach, clearly the team has improved a lot and is really playing really well. But what are some of those areas that the team has improved? We've talked all season about defensively trying to get better and some things on the offensive end as well. But what are some of those areas that you feel have really made the difference these last several games?
Well, we're sharing the basketball. It's just one extra pass. It's not a selfish attribute, from our guys, because they're not selfish. They're selfless, and but really feeling comfortable about moving the basketball and sharing the basketball is finding a way to get the ball inside and then kicking it back out to open shooters. We've gotten a lot more open, shots, whereas maybe in the middle of the season or earlier in the season we were taking too many contested shots, and especially against good teams that we were in the mindset of, here, why don't you get on my back and I'm going to carry us to victory. Well, it doesn't work like that for us. Like, we don't have one individual player that can just take over a game. If you take Maddox, for example, he really feeds off other players' great plays, and they kick it out to him, and he knocks down the shot, right? But individually, he's not capable of kind of carrying the team like Austin Kripe, just clear out, isolate, and make a basketball play. We don't have guys like that, and so we were trying to do that for the betterment of the team. We were trying to put the team on our back, and it didn't work, and so what we're realizing now is that it doesn't take one guy. It takes 5 guys. It takes 8 guys. It takes 10 guys working together, and collectively we put the team on our back and we make plays. And I think that's what you're seeing from our team here recently, is that it's one extra pass. It's getting the ball into the paint. It's helping on defense. We're doing a lot better job of our help side defense and sliding over and taking charges and helping one another out on the defensive end, which is sliding over and guarding those gaps when we get beat off of the dribble. that a guy has just a little extra time to recover, and so it's team defense, it's team offense, and really kind of getting our guys to realize that it's going to take that to become the basketball team we want to be, instead of, here, throw me the ball, I got this, mentality where we had at the beginning of the year. I think that's been the biggest difference.
And, Coach, that's one thing I loved about last night. That first half, it seemed like they were just kind of struggling as a team, finding each other. Then that second half, they came out, and, it was just all of them were connecting. We were talking about it on the broadcast over and over. They needed to find each other, and they started finding each other. And I was mentioning, you have Maddox Everingham as a top scorer, and, Miles. It's like everyone just passes around that top scoring thing. You had Maddox last game, then you have Colin Zebarth last night. It's not one player they have to focus on all, but see, when you pass that ball around, you have to focus on everybody, and that's one thing I like about watching this team.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, so it's not like maybe some other teams where look, I keep saying, because I look at you and I think West Noble, but Austin Kripe is an amazing talent, but he's going to get his one way or the other, and we just don't have that guy, and we have to be able to play, as a team and share the basketball. There's other teams out there where you can focus on one guy and you build a defensive game plan around one guy. And Wawasee is just not that team that you can do that, because we have several different weapons. And even at the Westview game when Colin Robertson, he has 14 points and 15 rebounds. And so if you forget about him, he can hurt you as well. And so it is a true team concept, and the guys get along so well, and they're happy for each other. I did make a substitution last night with another freshman in Davis Everingham, and I told this story after the game and with some of the former players that I was hanging out with last night. It was such a cool dad moment, for me, and most people would think because he got in the game, and it wasn't that. The proud dad moment was when I called his name and I put him into the game, is the players' reaction in the huddle. It was Darius Lewis and Mason Shoemaker and Kane Dukes and Pike and those guys that were standing there. They were so excited for Davis individually, for him going into the game. And I remember just saying, all right, Davis, you're in. And I remember the reaction of those guys on the bench, like, all right, Davis, you go do this. Come on, you hit this. They were really rooting him on, and that was the proud dad moment for me. Last night as a coach, as I put Davis in the game, but I looked at all the other players. They weren't going, well, you didn't put me in the game.
Yeah.
Wait, what about me? They weren't doing that. They were actually happy for one of their teammates getting an opportunity to go into the game. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think is so special about this team. Is that they truly love one another, and they're rooting on each other. And I do want to mention, too, the JV game last night.
Yes.
Weston DeLong hits a last-second shot. I'm talking last second shot. Look, do you think our guys don't love that guy?
Oh, man.
You see the reaction? The varsity team runs on the floor. You think our guys weren't happy for him?
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Coach, I have a question about that. Did you have to regroup the varsity teams? I seen you over there saying something, and they all just took off running on the court, and they all came running back.
No, I wasn't regrouping. I was like, I was pushing them out there. I was like, go celebrate. And look, our guys love Weston DeLong, and man, he was almost in tears, walking up, because he's come so far. He's focused on losing weight. He ran the mile this year in 6 minutes and 30 seconds, which, for him is like a minute and a half better than what he had last year, and so he's come such a long way. And for him to have that moment last night was perfect. It was just perfect, because he's been working so hard to have a moment like that. And then again, if guys, this is just the truth, right? If our guys don't really like him, he hits that last second shot, everybody probably walks back in casually to the locker room. That's not what happened. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was like you said, he's like, we had to regroup after the JV game, because they were so happy for him. And so that's the cool stuff in coaching that I think I'll miss. That's cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, well, hey, coming up, we're going to dig a little deeper into last night's win over East Noble, and then we're going to start looking ahead to Tuesday night for the sectional matchup against Northwood. But for now, we'll be back with more Coach's Corner Basketball Show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. Welcome back to the Coach's Corner Basketball Show on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. It's Grant Flora with Zac Bowen and Coach Jon Everingham for our final segment of the show this morning. And we're going to take a look deeper at last night's victory over East Noble in the regular season finale, and then look ahead to Tuesday night for the sectional matchup with Northwood. And Coach, it was a really great night last night all over. We were just talking about the JV game and how that all ended, and then the varsity win, which went really well. So what were kind of your overall thoughts on last night?
Yeah, I know we'll talk about the sectional here in a minute, but we've been spending a lot of time, trying to get ready for Northwood, and I like the sectional draw, and most people that texted me or talked to me, they said, what a terrible draw. But, for us, we needed some time to put together a game plan and to practice that game plan, for Northwood. And there's some things that we think we can do, against Northwood, and even some things that, maybe we're holding back just a little bit. I almost thought about, putting some things into play last night, but I asked Coach O'Connell. He said, "No, let's not do that." So, we've been practicing since last week. Basically getting ready for Northwood, and we needed that practice because they're so good. And even with all that practice and the game planning, the odds of us actually knocking them off are pretty slim. But at least we get a chance to prepare. And so it was really crucial for us to draw Northwood on Tuesday. Just because they are the strongest team in that sectional. West Noble is pretty good too, but in addition to the practices that we get a practice game, and that's how we kind of viewed East Noble. And Coach O'Connell took the lead on some matchups, and to be honest with you, we didn't know a whole lot about East Noble. What you saw last night was a little more of a preparation for Northwood, and if we would have had a chance to really sit down and take a look at East Noble, we probably would have done some things just a little bit different. Like the way we played ball screens, for example, we changed in the fourth quarter. But if we would have been preparing for East Noble, we probably would have played that different the entire game. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So anyway, we wanted to win the game, and I think when it was time to win the game, we started switching up a few things in the fourth quarter there, but I was really proud of our guys because they bought into that whole idea. Like, we come out, and some of the things you saw last night you'll see on Tuesday again. And I thought we played a pretty good game. We didn't shoot the ball well. I think we were 3 for 14 from three, and it's not very often you see Maddox go 0 for 5 in the first half, from 3-point range. But we still had a 5-point lead going into halftime. I thought we played a pretty good game. Didn't shoot the ball well, especially in the first half, but we had a lead, and it was an interesting halftime speech.
Coach, that's one thing I like to point out about last night's game, and I have it highlighted here, and I was kind of talking about it all night last night. There were 0 lead changes in that game. There were struggling points where East Noble could have potentially took that lead, but it's like every time East Noble would get close and had that chance, Wabasee would shut it down, and I thought that was amazing. 0 lead changes. The defense, they really locked in when they had to, and that was very impressive.
Yeah, it just was one of those games where you kind of felt like we were in control, the whole game. And we've had a couple games this year where we've had leads, and it didn't feel real comfortable. But just for whatever reason, I don't even know if I can explain it, but it just felt like we were in control. Like they did cut it to 6, but you thought it's okay. We're okay. And I think it's because we were handling the ball. We weren't turning the ball over. At Westview was a different story. They started pressuring us, and we were turning the ball over. That lead never felt real comfortable. Last night it felt comfortable. We were comfortable because I just felt like at some point we were going to knock down a few big shots, and that's exactly what happened. In the fourth quarter, I think Z-Barth hit a shot in the corner, and Maddox hit a huge shot, to kind of extend the lead, and we were only up 9 or 10, and they were kind of scrambling maybe with 3 minutes to go in the game, and we did a good job of taking care of business, late in the game where we knocked down free throws. Miles goes 8 for 8 from the free throw line. like I said, Maddox and Colin hit big shots, and you got Robertson down there with 13 rebounds on the game that was taking care of the defensive boards at one end, and we had other guys taking care of the offensive side.
Yeah, Coach, another thing that we kind of talked about throughout the broadcast last night was you were expecting Hunter Klein to be a big focal point for the team, and he ended up not coming into the game last night for whatever reason. But how did that kind of change your game plan going in with just not knowing whether he was playing or not, and then not having to worry about him?
Yeah, we had kind of heard that he had a groin injury and that he may not play, but he did go through warm-ups, so he was available for substitution. So, you just kind of plan on, guys playing. He's a big kid, and so, yeah, in all honesty, I think he's a pretty good player. We haven't watched him a whole lot on film. Again, we're kind of getting ready for Northwood, but, I wasn't overly concerned about his game. Just because we have a guy that can defend him. We had a good matchup on him, and so does he make enough of a difference to have them win the game? I don't know, but we felt good and comfortable with who he was and how we were going to defend him if he did play. And they brought a kid in named Trish he's a freshman, and we had big problems. We had our hands full with that kid. He had 16 points, and how we were playing ball screens when they gave him the ball and put the game in his hands, and he's going to be a really good player. I played with his dad in college, and so the Klein not playing, but then Treesh kind of comes in his place and scores 16. So does Klein score more than 16? Probably not. So I'm not sure it'd have been a huge difference in the game. East Noble people will probably tell you it would, but I'm not sure it would have. So no, they. What's number 10's name?
Owen Ritchie.
Owen Ritchie is the guy that we were really concerned about. He had 7 points, but we were glued. We were locked in on him all night long to make sure he didn't go off, because that dude can score, 20 or 25 at any given moment. So we were a little more concerned about Ritchie anyway.
Coach, I want to sink in a little bit. It's officially sectional time.
Yeah.
And your first matchup's against the Northwood Panthers. You already played them earlier this year, and obviously that game probably didn't go the way you wanted it to. But you learned a lot of things from that game, and now, like you've mentioned, you have a lot of time. You've had a lot of time to prepare on them and focus on them. So what's one thing that you're taking in this game and that you're ready to play the Northwood Panthers?
Well, like I said, I think it was a favorable draw for us because we get a chance to prepare for Northwood. And I've been telling guys, we're going to get Northwood on Tuesday. This is before the draw. I was telling them we're going to play Northwood on Tuesday. So kind of getting our guys' minds right. And I'm not sure we can beat them, if I'm being completely honest. And our guys would tell you the same thing. Can you beat them? We're not sure. But what I'm telling you is that that we're going to have the belief after today and going through film and the things that we learned from the last game. And we're going to have a game plan, and we're going to go over and give them heck over there. I mean, honestly, there's some things that we're going to be able to do that's going to kind of throw them for a loop just a little bit. They'll have to adjust to us and our style of play, and they know that. I think they really do know that, but we competed really well with West Noble, and we competed really well with some other teams that were able to stay with Northwood, but they're exceptionally good. They have every position filled. They got good shooters. They got good inside big men. And the thing that they're known for, if you really know basketball, is their defense. Is they're really physical, and they're really good on defense in the interior. And they're just very disciplined, as well on defense and on offense. So there's some things that we're going to be able to game plan for that I think is going to make us much more competitive, than the game we played earlier in the season. I'm sure of that. But what I'm not sure of is, being competitive and actually knocking them off. It's like two different things. But what I can tell you, I was saying in the locker room last night, I had the guys from Argus, I had the guys from DeKalb. We've done it. Like, those guys have actually done it. And so today, selling our guys on the idea that we can actually do it is something that I'm looking forward to. Watching game film, presenting the game plan in its entirety, and really kind of selling them on that is going to be kind of cool today.
Yeah, Coach, I'll tell you, when I saw the sectional draw, I was excited to see just that, you guys are going to get to play Northwood, because from the first coaches show that we did, which your record was 0-0, hadn't played a single game. We were talking, and you were like, Northwood is one of our focuses for the season because we know that to win a sectional, you have to beat Northwood, and they're going to be really good. And so to see that finally for the sectional, you get to play Northwood, you get your chance, and you're going to have a game plan. You get to plan for them. It's just going to be an exciting game, and who knows if you can win or not. But just getting that opportunity is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, they're ranked number one. Basically, they've been ranked number one for the last 2 years. They're probably the best, Class 3A team in the last 2 years. And that's no disrespect to West Noble. They'll tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Northwood's the best team in the sectional. But, West Noble is going to have their hands full with Lakeland because Lakeland's got some dudes. I mean, they got some players and some veteran guys, and they're physical too. And so I think if you're looking for some good basketball games, go over to Sectional 21 and check it out because there's some interesting storylines over there. And if things play out as planned, which they rarely do, you're going to see West Noble and Northwood in that championship game potentially. And I'll tell you a quick story real quick. But when I was at DeKalb, my first year at DeKalb, and Fort Wayne Snyder was ranked like number 2 in the state, and they're picked to be the North candidate for the state finals. And Fort Wayne Carroll was ranked number 8 in the state. This is Class 4A. Okay, the DeKalb Barons won 5 games on the year. 5 games. Okay, on the year. We were 5-15 going into the sectional, but we were playing good basketball at the end. And nobody, and I mean nobody, Fort Wayne Carroll had 2 Division I players and another kid that went to the Crossroads League. And there was nobody that was thinking that we had a chance to win that game, probably except for me, maybe my teammate, or maybe the guys on the team. And I know their coach knew we could win. You know what I'm saying? We won on the last second shot. And then we win the Friday night game. We win number 6, win number 7 on Friday night. And then we face Fort Wayne Snyder, okay, who's ranked number 2. And we take them down to the very end, and we got a 1-1, and I think we're down 4, and we ended up dropping that game. But what I'm saying is when it comes sectional time in the state of Indiana, you have to expect the unexpected. And so, every coach in the state of Indiana is saying that, whether they got 5 wins or they got 20 wins or ranked number 1 or whatever the ranking is. Like, look, we've been around this game long enough to know there's crazy things that could happen. And that Fort Wayne Snyder team ended up going to the state finals and losing to North Central. And so we were competing at a high level. I think this team has the potential to actually do that next week, is to compete at a really high level and to really either put a scare into Northwood or knock them off and move on to Friday night. So, that's the storyline, over there at Sectional 21.
Yeah, this sectional I feel like is going to be a great sectional. And as you mentioned, everyone get out there and watch it if you can. But if you can't, me, Grant, and Roger Brady are going to be calling the games here on 93.7 FM The Mix. But, I really feel like that's going to be an amazing sectional. All the teams in it are very competitive. They've all at least played each other. So they all have that sense in their mind, hey, we can knock out this team if we do these things. So, I just really feel like it's going to be like one of the most competitive sectionals in Indiana.
Yeah, we got 2 top teams, West Noble and Northwood. They're 2 ranked teams in the state of Indiana. You got the number 1 ranked team in the state. But, for us, we lost bad to Northwood. We lost to Fairfield, right?
Yeah, first game of the season.
The first game of the season, which was a really disappointing loss. But we beat Lakeland and take West Noble to overtime. And so outside of Northwood, you think, well, this is pretty open. And then you got Northwood in there, the monsters. But it's going to be difficult for them to squeeze through there. But, so and I will mention, too, the winner of this sectional plays Hanover Central sectional winner. There's no team ranked higher than us in that sectional. So whoever wins this sectional, whoever it comes out, is going to have a really good chance to win the regional too.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
So to go to semi-state, that's including us.
Yeah.
If we come out of the sectional, we'll have a good chance of winning that thing. So anyway, pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely lots to look forward to. And Coach, before we conclude, I do have to say I'm this sectional is now sectional 20 with the new
Sectional 20.
alignments.
All right.
And then sectional
Whatever.
20. I know it's been sectional 21 in the past.
Is it?
But it is now
Oh, yeah,
sectional
okay,
20.
whatever. Sectional 20. Come out and watch sectional 20.
Yes. It's going to be 5 teams all capable of doing some big things. But that's going to conclude our final Coach's Corner basketball show of the season. And, Coach, thank you for coming in on these mornings and talking with us. It's certainly been fun to hear from you and to get another look at the team. And now we're looking at sectionals, and it's just been a great season of basketball this year.
Yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. You guys have done a great job, obviously. And so many comments from my family members that live elsewhere. And you guys do such a good job. And are you guys both seniors?
Zach will be back. Zach's a junior.
Zach will be back, and so we're going to miss you, Grant, and appreciate all you've done this year, and hopefully we got some more exciting games for you in the sectional, and you guys hopefully really enjoy that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that concludes our final Coach's Corner basketball show of the season. It's been Grant Flora, Zac Bowen, and Coach Jon Everingham, and we will see you Tuesday night as the Warriors take on Northwood at the Pit for the sectional kickoff. That'll be in the round 1, starting at 7 p.m. Certainly get out and support. If not, Zach and I and Coach Roger Brady will be calling the game on 93.7 FM The Mix and online at 937themix.com. But again, that concludes our show, and we'll see you Tuesday night.